What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Vikings Now. Before we get into today's show, it's trivia time. I'm going to be starting something new here on the channel where I ask you a trivia question at the beginning of the show, and then I'll give you the answer at the end of today's show. So make sure you stay tuned all the way to the end. But the question I'm asking you guys today, who is the Vikings' very first draft pick in the franchise's history? Let me know if you know the answer to that down in the comments section. What's going on, guys? Welcome into Vikings Now. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, the first topic we're going to be talking about is signing NFL free agent Trey Flowers. Will regrets connected to the Vikings to signing him, so we're going to be diving into that, and I'll be giving you guys my thoughts on if I think he'll be a good addition to this Vikings Edge group. And then also, we're going to be diving into Brian Flores, because there's a lot of hype around this Vikings defense, just the reports coming out of mandatory minicamp, and then obviously rookie training camp. There's some cool quotes that we'll dive into, and I actually do think Brian Flores could potentially turn this defense around. But the first story, we're going to be talking about signing Trey Flowers, the former Patriots, Lions, Dolphins, edge rusher. And, he's had a long career in the NFL, and he hasn't been as productive the past couple seasons, but he is still a solid name to consider. This is actually what Will had to say about the Vikings potentially signing Trey Flowers to add to this edge group. He says Flowers turns 30 in August, so it's hard to call him washed up just yet. Unfortunately, he played in 18 games over the past 3 seasons with the Lions and Dolphins due to various injuries. He carried on to say, health is a major question mark with Flowers, but it's also a reason why it shouldn't cost too much to add on a 1-year deal. A 4th-round pick by the Patriots out of Arkansas in 2015, Flowers spent 4 seasons overlapping with Flores in New England. During that time, he quickly became a standout outside linebacker on one of the league's best defenses. Flowers barely played as a rookie, but he racked up 21 sacks and 5 forced fumbles between 2016 and 2018. He added 5.5 sacks in 9 playoff games during that time, and also winning 2 Super Bowls for the New England Patriots. And the last season, we really seen Trey Flowers be productive from a stats perspective. Is 2019 back with the Lions. He actually had a couple big games against the Vikings, if you guys remember that season. But that year, he had 51 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, and he had 7 sacks and 2 forced fumbles for the Lions that season. And that was really the last year we saw Trey Flowers, producing at a high clip. But right now, where the Vikings edge rushers stand, and why I wouldn't be, all in on getting a guy like Trey Flowers, because I do want to see some of these guys develop. Like Danielle Hunter, obviously I do expect him to be back. He's set to make $4.5 million next season base salary, and he wants to get paid a little more. That's why he was not reporting to mandatory minicamp. So hopefully they get that resolved before training camp gets going. But then again, Marcus Davenport, former first-round pick, obviously he was not as productive during his time with New Orleans, but maybe with a new change of scenery, he could finally live up to that first-round selection. And then DJ Wonnum, I've been a fan of him ever since he came out of college. He had a really strong first and second year in the league. Wasn't as productive in his 3rd season, but I do think he's could maybe develop into a 7-8 sack a year guy. And Patrick Jones is the one I'm very curious about to see if he can really take that jump, because during limited reps last season, we really seen him pop and make splash plays for the Vikes. So he's another guy to keep your eye on. But then Andre Carter, too, the UDFA out of Army. If you went back and looked at mock drafts, heading into this year's draft from last season, people had Andre Carter as a first-round pick. He had 14.5 sacks in his junior year at Army, and then obviously the production wasn't there in his senior season due to double teams and everything, and he isn't really the most pure form of pass rusher we've seen coming out of college, but he's a developmental piece, and I'd rather just have these reps go to some of these guys. Like, I think the Vikings have a very solid room, and just might as well kind of water your own grass instead of trying to go and add another piece. But Flowers, we have seen the downfall. Like, just going off his PFF grades dating back to 2018, 2018, he posted a 90.4 grade, which is fantastic. It was one of the top in the league that season. And then 2019, he was still very productive. 2020, still very productive. But that 2021 and 2022 season, where he's only played, it was 18 games over these past 3 seasons, the productivity hasn't been there, and just overall, just his play hasn't been living up to what he was back in his days with New England, combined with Brian Flores. So maybe Flores thinks he could get a little bit out of him, maybe be more of a third down pass rush specialist where you just say, hey, it's third and long. You know they're passing. Just pin your ears back and try to get to the quarterback. He's got a good kind of arsenal of pass rush moves. And honestly, if there's any defensive coordinator in the league that could get the most out of Flowers, it would probably be Flores. But I'll toss it your guys' way, and I'll make this the pin comment on today's video. Would you sign Trey Flowers during NFL free agency? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I personally would. I think it would be just a good addition, but I wouldn't want him to play over guys like Wonnum, Andre Carter, even Marcus Davenport. Want those guys to get the main reps, but if he's just a third down pass rush specialist, I think I would do it. But let me know your thoughts. Would you sign Trey Flowers? Y for yes and for no. Now let's talk about Brian Flores. Is he going to be the kind of missing piece to fix this Minnesota Vikings defense, who was frankly awful last season? Christopher Gates wrote up a pretty cool article on Flores, and this is what he had to say. After spending the 2022 season as the linebackers coach in Pittsburgh, Flores will return as a featured coaching role, this time as defensive coordinator with the Minnesota Vikings. Before his time with the Steelers, Flores was head coach of the Dolphins. In his first season with the Dolphins, they ranked last in points per game, allowing 30.9. In his second season, they jumped all the way to fourth with 21.1. In his final season, Miami fell to 15th, but their average stayed true at 21.9 points per game. And the Fins placed sixth in the league in expected points allowed per the final two seasons with Brian Flores. And he would be a huge addition to this defense because we know how bad that defense was last season. I mean, where they stood in terms of NFL ranks, they were the worst defense in the league. And it's just incredible still looking back on it. Like, the Vikings season last year was really just catching lightning in a bottle. Like, having the worst defense in the league and then also not having a consistent running game but still winning 13 games, it's just shocking how the Vikings did that. But yards per game, 31st. Yards per play, 30th. Rush yards per game, I guess, is the kind of bright spot of this. But mainly teams last year just said, why not just keep passing the ball on the Vikes? Because they just can't stop it. Terrible secondary, and that's what they did, throwing for nearly 266 yards per game. I mean, we had a stretch where it was like Daniel Jones, Mike White, Jared Goff, all through for 350-plus yards against this defense. The Ed Donashell drop coverage, play 10 yards off your wide receiver. It was just old, and the Vikings, hopefully Brian Flores will fix that. But not just Brian Flores being added to this defense. We had other guys, and obviously they made more additions than this, but I'm just focusing in on these five names. Byron Murphy, number one. He was a huge pickup during NFL free agency, probably the top corner. Maybe it was either him or, Detroit Lions corner now, Cam Sutton. But I think he was a good addition. Again, I like him more as a corner two, corner three. Him having to kind of carry the corner one load, a little concerning, but I'm curious to see how he'll do. Then Marcus Davenport, obviously we mentioned him earlier, the edge that we got from the Saints. If he could ever live up to that first-round value, again, a huge addition to this defense. Dean Lowry, we took him from the Green Bay Packers. He's killed the Vikings in past years. He's just kind of that anchor in the middle of the defense. He'll eat up blocks, open up running lanes for the linebackers to go tackle the running back. I've always been a fan of him. And then Troy Reeder, he was connected with Kevin O'Connell back in his days with the Los Angeles Rams. So bringing him in, just another depth piece to have at that linebacker spot, I think is good. Then Mekhi Blackman, our third-round corner out of USC. Flores loves him. He loves playing him outside. Apparently, he gets real sticky in coverage, so excited to see him play as well. But four guys that are on the team last year that need to step up, and we've talked about these guys a ton. The two corners at the top both dealt with injuries this past season. Both of those guys, they are going to need to have big years for the Vikings. Like, I am a fan of both them, but from a productivity standpoint, they weren't there last season, and they were just in and out of lineups. Brian Asamoah, take it to the bank. He's going to be a future All-Pro in this league. He's super versatile, super fast. I have been always a huge fan of his game, dating back to his days coming out of Oklahoma. He's just one of those guys where you turn on the highlights and you're like, dude, this guy is legit. Then Lewis Cine, obviously coming off injury as well. Again, versatility with him, fits Flores' scheme, box safety. You can drop him back in the coverage, whatever it may be, he can handle it all. But my whole kind of takeaway and kind of breakdown of the Minnesota Vikings defense heading into this next season. Like, Brian Flores will be able to improve the scheme and just the overall development of some of these players for the Vikings. But at the end of the day, man, it's going to come down to players making plays. Like, that's why, I feel like Vikings fans were kind of stuck in this kind of situation right now, I guess, or this conundrum where, we just think Brian Flores is going to be that Band-Aid and he'll just automatically fix anything or everything there. Listen, the Vikings defense last season, they were bad from a player standpoint too, and a player productivity standpoint. Like, yes, Ed Donatel was an awful defensive coordinator. I will never support how he coaches defense and just his overall philosophy. It was terrible. But Vikings fans, we got to realize it's going to come down to a lot of these players stepping up and making plays. Flores will put them in position to make the plays, but again, it's going to come down to if they can actually execute and convert on these, key third downs or whatever it may be. I don't know. That's why I'm a little not maybe as optimistic as some Vikings fans on this defense. I think Flores will help, but again, it's going to come down to the dogs actually making plays. Well, I ask you guys this question before we get into the trivia answer on today's show. Give the Vikings defense a Madden rating. Give it 1 through 99 down in the comment section. I'd probably go a 74 or a 75. But the trivia answer on today's show, the first time we're bringing this out, it was actually Tommy Mason out of Tulane. The first overall pick in the 1961 draft, Vikings took a running back, Tommy Mason. So if you guys knew that, I definitely didn't. Obviously, I'm a younger Vikings fan. But if you guys knew that, let me know down in the comment section. But Tommy Mason was the Vikings' first overall pick back in 1961. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Skol Vikes.